Today is January the 21st, 2014. I will be interviewing Frances Coleman at the J, and we will begin now. Good morning.
Good morning.
And you are Frances Coleman.
I am.
I'll start way at your beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Dallas, Texas.
And your parents?
They were born in Poland, both of them.
What got them to Dallas?
I don't know what got my mother to Dallas. I know her father lived here, and he brought him over many years ago with my grandmother and her children. My father came over because he was a baker in Poland. And Mr. Weinstein, who was Ann Kessner Weinstein's father, had a bakery here, and he needed somebody to help him. And so he brought my father over, and he became his partner. And they were in partners.
So they landed in New York?
Galveston.
Galveston. Made their way here. How old were they?
How old were they when they came?
Or had they been were they married? I don't imagine.
I don't think my father was married then. My mother was not married. Well, neither one of them then was.
Yeah, yeah. And growing up in Dallas, that was a big community. I imagine you know everybody in Dallas. Have you kept the same friends?
We have. We've kept quite a few through the years. And as I said before, some of them live in my building, the ones that graduated with us. And we see them quite a bit too.
We've interviewed lots of people. It was a wonderful life growing up in South Dallas. Tell me a little bit about it. Where did you go to school?
I went to elementary school at Colonial. I went to high school at Forest. And we lived on South Boulevard. And I used to walk to school most of the time. But we had a streetcar, and we had these little coupons that we did, and we would buy it for, I don't know, $12. Maybe it lasted us a whole year. I'm sorry, my voice is cracking. And they would punch it when we got on the streetcar. They would punch the ticket, but most of the time we walked back and forth. And we stopped at Friedman Drugs because I saw there was a picture out here. And we always had some ice cream, and there was a, what was the name? Golden Pickles. And we always had to stop and get a nickel for a pickle. And that was our big treat, kind of going back and forth to school. And then my husband went to Forest, and that's where I met him at school. And he lived right across the street from the high school. And he used to walk me all the way home and all the way back, and I lived about a mile away. But he carried my books back and forth.
So it was a romance when you were teenagers.
Right. And we married as teenagers.
You were married as teenagers. How old were you?
18.
He was probably 19.
He was 19, right.
Did you go to college or?
No, I went to business school, Draughon's business school. And then the war came and I worked.
Yeah. Did your husband go off to war?
Yes, he did. He did. We got married when I was 18. He was stationed in Little Rock, Arkansas. And and I moved down there and stayed with him for maybe about a year or something. And then he was shipped overseas. And he was gone about 2.5 years. He was in the medics.
Did you have any children at the
No.
time?
Oh, no, we didn't have any children.
So,
No,
okay.
before he left, we didn't have any children. We had children after he got back.
Did you work while he was gone?
I did. I worked at a vacuum cleaner place, and I worked for Herman Phillipson. He was right across the street from Teich's. And I worked there for, almost the whole time my husband was gone. And he paid me, I think it was like $11.50 a week. My mother had a store on Deep Elm, Oh, that was pretty good in those days, $11.50. And I got a offer from an insurance company to work for them for $12.50 an hour. So I told him I was leaving, and he got very upset. And he walked all the way down to my mother's store to talk her into talking me in to not quitting. And so I didn't quit. I did what my mama said. In those days, we did what our mother said.
Did you get the raise?
No.
Oh my gosh. When he came back, what field did
Well, he went into the liquor business because his uncle, I shouldn't say some of it, his uncle Max Coleman was in the liquor business, and Julius Sheps and his cousin. And they told him that would be a good business for him. And we bought a little place, or we had one built on South Boulevard, on Forest, right near the fairgrounds, which was a terrible location. And not only that, it was right after the war, and they weren't giving us the good liquor. All we had were the cordials and things. We didn't really have that much to grow on. Finally, and I did want to say something else. When we went into business, we had a little money to open up the store and to go into business. But then we were told there was another business for sale, and it was very good. It was on Samuels Boulevard, and we could get a loan and go work and get a store there. Anyway, we went to the bank. What was his name? It's a downtown bank of some sort.
Republic?
And my mother had been doing business there all the time. Mr.
Republic? Rachowski?
Rachowski. Mr. Rachowski. And we went to him for a loan. And my mother, who had this little dry goods store, had been getting her money from him back and paying back and going back. Anyway, we went to him. He wouldn't loan us the money. So he went to Julius Sheps. And Julius said, "How much do you need?" He said, "I need $20,000. So he went down to Mr. Rachowski, and he said, "Put my name on the note, and I'll pay for it if they don't." But luckily, we paid it all off, and that's where we started and into our businesses. And we ended up with 40 at one time.
I want to backtrack for a little bit. Growing up, was your family connected to any religious? Did you have religious affiliations?
We lived a block away from Temple Emmanuel. So I went, but they were from Shearith Israel. So I went to Temple Emmanuel for a couple of years, but mainly we were at Shearith Israel.
Question that I always ask is, growing up, did you meet with any anti-Semitism?
Not really. Not that I can recall. I think I kind of remember one thing when I was still very young, and we lived at Park Avenue, and I walked to school there, which was a short distance, and I must have been 8, 9. I can remember somebody yelling something at me about being a Jew. But other than that, at high school we never did. At elementary school we never did.
That's good. Do you have any favorite experiences you remember growing up? Any devilish things you might have done, or any excitement that you remember the most? Anything you'd want to share with us?
Well, let's see. Our excitement wasn't too much. We went to the movies, which was right around the corner from where we lived on Colonial. And then, of course, my boyfriends, I think maybe 2 of them had cars. Julius had a car, and Morris Wolf had a car. And we would all pile in those cars, and we'd go get a root beer, or we'd go get ice cream, or we'd go to the movies. But it was just like a fun thing with just friends, and trying to think anything exciting that we did in those days. Played spin the bottle. That was a big thing, yeah. And Aaron Spelling was one of them that played spin the bottle with us. Yeah, but nobody wanted to kiss him because we didn't like him.
Oh my gosh. Would you kiss him now if you knew?
No, he's dead.
That's right. That's right. But you hadn't met, I mean, you weren't doing this behind Red's back, were you?
Oh, no, I was dating other boys, too,
Yeah.
at that time, yeah.
Did you, well, your family belonged to the synagogue.
Yeah.
But then you crossed over and went to Temple. Do you belong to?
No, I only went to Temple because it was close.
Uh-huh.
And so I just went there for about a year, but they always belonged to Shearith Israel.
Mm-hmm.
They never belonged to Temple.
Are you the oldest sister?
I am.
Okay. Your other two sisters live in?
In Dallas. They
In
were
Dallas.
born in Dallas, both of them.
And what are their names?
Ruthie Levy. Her son is Milton B. Levy Plumbing Company.
Mhm.
And Ethel Silvergold.
Mhm.
Frankfurt Zale.
Oh, Ethel's your sister.
She's my sister.
Yeah.
And we were the Silvergold girls. Yeah.
I bet you were famous.
Yeah.
What temple do you belong to now? What is your
Shearith Israel.
Shearith Israel.
Mhm.
And are you affiliated with any organizations, or what have been your favorite organizations?
My own personal,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm affiliated with every one of them.
Every one of them.
I mean,
Any favorites?
well, I'm really not into organization now like I used to be, but at one time I was very active.
Mm-hmm.
So I belonged to, I belonged to Hadassah, I belonged to B'nai B'rith, I belonged to, well, you name them.
Mhm.
I still belong to them. And a lot of them I'm lifetime members too.
Children, how many children?
4, but one deceased.
And they're Dallasites?
Mhm.
Oh, how lucky can one person be? And grandchildren?
9 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, and one on the way.
Mm-hmm. Are they or you very involved in the Jewish community as far as boards or interests or?
Are you talking about present or past?
Past. Oh,
Yeah,
past.
yeah, in the past we were.
Mhm.
In the present, we really haven't been too much.
Mhm. The children as well?
Not too much.
Yeah, yeah. Stop the film. Ruth, stop it. What was Stop.
You want to see the picture? This was when we were honored at Shearith Israel, and they gave a tribute dinner for me and my husband. And Tootsie and Peter Feinberg were the chairman. Steve Ungerman was the greetings. Bess Cohen did the toast. My sisters were involved, and the invocation was Rabbi Jordan Offsire.
Give me a date on that.
Trying to see if there is a date. It's terrible they don't put a date on here.
And if we can, we're going to put it in the, it'll be going in our newspaper, and we'll ask who the other people are. We do that now. Okay. Oh, she's going to give it to me anyway. Hold on. Just a minute.
And that was,
Sorry, I still get this wrong.
some of them I recognized.
How far back does AZA BBG go?
You know, I don't know. I know.
Want it?
And that was on Forest Avenue. This is when my father died, 1932, and that was the paper. don't know if you're interested in this. This is Julius when he wrote, they interview the parents usually for school, and they wrote this for Julius, so it's all about Julius.
You want to read it?
You want me to read it?
Please.
Trying to see which child wrote it. It just says, The Spectacular Life of Julius Coleman by, this is my great-granddaughter, Allison Aftergut. Allison Aftergut. In Ferris, Texas, 1923, Julius Coleman was born. Pardon me. He was the first son in the Coleman family. After having 2 girls, the Coleman family was happy to have a new son in the family. Julius's dad came to America in 1906 from Russia, and his mother came in 1912 from Poland. Julius grew up to have a wonderful childhood, pretty good education, and a fabulous adult life. Julius had a wonderful childhood when he was younger. In 1932, when Julius was 9 years old, he moved to Dallas, Texas. He grew up with his mom, dad, and 2 older sisters. That's Bess and Lee. Bess Cohen and Lee, Margolis Lee, Aftergut. Julius' dad was a great man. He was very smart and kind to his family. His mom was called Mamaw, but her real name was Rebecca, and that's how Allison, his great-granddaughter, got her middle name. His mom was a sweet lady and a housewife. She had 6 brothers and 1 sister. When Julius was young, he used to go to the baseball game in Oak Cliff. It is amazing that it was only 3 cents each way. He used to ride the streetcar to get there. He would also love to go to his dad's grocery store and eat candy. One of the family traditions was to keep kosher. His childhood was lots of fun, and he liked school a lot. Julius felt he was a good student in school. His favorite subject in school was business economics. When he was younger, he wanted to be an attorney. Julius felt very good about school when he was growing up. Julius wanted to get all of the education he could get. He went to school, now called the University of Texas, Arlington. Back then, it wasn't a college like it is today. Julius never got to college. Julius had to work very hard instead of going to college. Even though Julius had to work instead of going to college, he had a great big business. Julius made the business all by himself and made it into a giant company. And that's very hard to do if you don't go to college. Julius loves his adult life. Julius now enjoys his adult life very much. Julius fought in World War II and then came home to work. Julius married his wife, Frances Coleman, who he had met in services when he was 15 years old. They had 4 children, Andrea, Ronnie, Janine, and Wendy. They have 9 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren, who are Alice and Jessica Aftergut. Now we have another one and one on the way. Julius came from a religious family and still keeps religion. It's hard to believe, but Julius had 40 stores. It started as a little business and then grew bigger. He used to have red hair, so named his stores Red Coleman. Everyone still sometimes calls him Red Coleman. Julius has had a wonderful life and still has some hopes and plans for the future. He wants more great-grandchildren and thinks his life will be the same in 5 years from now. It's hard to say, but Julius and Frances Coleman have been married 69 years, 71 now. Julius has worked very hard all of his life. He's a wonderful great-grandfather. His life is always very exciting no matter what he does.
Oh. I want to once again backtrack because I think you were more involved in the community than I asked you about. Tell me, what were your big honors and achievements?
Can I read them? Because I know, okay. I'd rather read it. Okay, I served, was financial and vice president of Shearith Israel Sisterhood.
Oh, you left that out.
Yeah, I was chairman of the Advanced Gifts Division for Federation Women's Division, and a past recipient of the Federation Campaign Achievement Award. I was an officer in Mizrahi Women and B'nai B'rith Women. I was chairman for 3 years in Israel Bonds, and I received the Gates of Israel Award and was honored as their Woman of Valor. I was selected by the Jewish Community Center as Woman of the Year, and also has been involved with Susan Coleman Cancer Center in the City of Hope. And then there's some other awards I have received through Israel Bonds. I won't name them, but those are mainly the ones.
Well, I'm glad we got those little
Yeah.
details in. With your life lately, I guess you're just enjoying it and
Right.
taking retirement from,
Yeah, it
from all
is.
those activities.
And I feel badly that I'm not involved, but I just don't have the courage to
Come
do it
on. It's
anymore.
time
And
to
I
let-
admire all of you that do it. I think it's wonderful.
Tell me about your role models. Did you have any role models that you wanted to fashion yourself after or that you looked up to?
Well, my grandmother, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
My father died when I was 9 years old.
Oh,
So my mother, of course, she went to work with my grandparents who owned the stores I was telling you about. And she worked for them the rest of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And she raised 3 children. My sister Ethel was born. My sister Ruthie was 5, and I was 9.
Mm-hmm.
So she had these 3 children. And then my grandmother lived next door in the duplex that we lived in. And we had like a little fence in between us. We would jump over the fence and go talk to her. And that's where we learned our Yiddish. I've kind of forgotten it now, but I can remember some of it.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a role model to me in a way.
Mm-hmm.
She was a wonderful woman, and she was a house mother.
Mm-hmm.
And she always had us over for the cookies and the kichel and everything else like a grandmother would.
Mm-hmm.
But she was one of my closest friends.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And role models, I guess, were my aunts growing up that I had. But I don't know what else you mean.
And what were the names of your grandmother and aunts?
Was my grandmother and grandfather
Mm-hmm.
was Sam and Ann Rosenblum.
Mm-hmm. And aunts.
Oh, my aunts was Fanny Granick. What Fanny? Did you know Fanny? Fanny Granick and Edith. Got her name.
Okay.
Edith, Fanny, and Ida.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had a few aunts. Luckily, they were wonderful.
Well, half of Dallas must be your relatives. at
They
this
are
point.
now.
Yeah. Has Dallas changed for you much since?
Well, you know, I was going to say, when we were small, we didn't hardly have any relatives here.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
very few, and now we've grown to be a city.
That's right.
What were you asking?
How has Dallas changed in
Oh.
your?
Well, we kind of knew everybody in Dallas when we were small, and we knew all the Jewish people especially. But now when I go to the synagogue, I don't recognize 2/3, 3/4 of them anymore.
Yeah.
They're all, you know, come here in the last few years, and since we haven't been really close to the synagogue like we used to be, it's just gotten away from us.
Do you miss the old days?
I do, in a way,
Uh-huh.
but I'm glad to see the new ones coming too.
Uh-huh. Well, I know where you lived, and you've moved
The Bond
miles
entry.
north. Yeah, miles and miles north. What were your stops on the way north? When did you move from South Dallas?
Well, let's see, when I got married,
Mm-hmm.
we rented a place on Colonial. Right after the war, you couldn't find anything to rent anyway or buy. And we found one little house way down south on Colonial, and we rented it. Then we bought a house. Oh, then the GI Bill came in, and for $12,000 we bought a house in White Rock area, one of the little GI homes. And then from there we moved over to Northgate Circle right off of Preston and North Haven. I got a lot of moves. And then from there we built a home on Yamini, and we were there 20 years. And from Yamini we moved to Meadowwood, which was Walnut Hill. We kept the whole area. I loved that area. We lived there 20 years. And then we moved to Dexter, which was right across the street from the shul. And we were there about 8 years. Now we're in the Bond Adventure.
Oh, my God. You must have a lot of suitcases.
Like every 20 years I have to move.
Your children went to school where?
Pershing and Hillcrest, Franklin and Hillcrest.
So
One of them went to Greenville. One went to, my son went to St. Mark's. The girls went to Pershing and Hillcrest, Franklin.
Yeah, you actually stayed within the same school district.
Just about, yeah, the whole time.
Yeah.
But when we moved to Meadowwood, they were already grown. They had already left home.
I see. Is there anything I'm leaving out that you'd like to add that I might have missed as far as some of your experiences growing up, or how your thoughts about the city?
Oh, well, the city wasn't hardly there when I was small or growing up. But we used to take Pearl Klausner was my good friend. And we used to take the streetcar and go downtown to the movie or go to Neiman's, and that was our big treat. And to go by ourselves, and we were very young.
How old?
Well, that was before I got married, so we must have been 15, 16. And nobody bothered us. We wouldn't think of drugs. I mean, it was just a wonderful world that we lived in those days. There was no alcohol. And there was no shootings, no killings that we heard of, and it was just a small town, good place to grow up. We were very fortunate.
For so many people of that era, Neiman Marcus was your entertainment, practically.
Yeah. And we used to go on right before the holidays. My mother would take all of us down there, and we'd go buy a little dress for the holidays. And we would eat lunch there, and that was the biggest treat of all.
Zodiac.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.